So I'm delighted to join you all this afternoon. My name is Alison Hood. I'm the Dean of Teaching and Learning here in the university. Delighted you're here for the Project Live Expo and panel discussion. Maynooth University is a public research university dedicated to people, ideas and culture, a community working together to inquire and discover, to teach and learn, to create, disseminate and apply knowledge, and engage with the challenges that face modern society. We are incredibly proud that Maynooth University is a national leader in equality and diversity and quality inclusive education. Given the recent THE Global Impact Rankings, this university ranked first in Ireland for reducing inequalities and joined first in Ireland for quality education, and that's Sustainable Development Goal 4, and our commitment to lifelong learning and inclusive education. A key strategic priority for us is to equip our students for work, life and engaged citizenship by providing a unique, diverse and intellectually challenging programme portfolio and learning environment. Project Live is an experiential learning programme designed to enhance student real-world learning with a curriculum, employing community-engaged and work-related learning principles and practice. Established by the Experiential Learning Office in 2020, and funded by the HEA Innovation and Transformation Project Funding, Future Ready. This programme involves the co-creation of materials, products and services to directly benefit the external stakeholder, whilst also supporting discipline-focused, credit-bearing programmes and modules within our curriculum. Thank you to our funders, that's the Higher Education Authority. Without their support, this initiative would not be possible. Thank you to the Experiential Learning Office team led by Dr. Aisling Flynn for establishing and leading this successful initiative. To the Project Live expert panel members, Alan Shine, John Cullen, John Kearns, Julian Nagy, Michelle Kearns, Simon Ahern and Susan Gottlieb. We want to express our gratitude for the knowledge, guidance and direction you brought and continue to bring to this initiative. To all the Project Live stakeholders, including our academics and their external partners, and of course our students, thank you for your energy, expertise and engagement in this programme. Despite the challenges of the past year, you chose to step up, to collaborate, to become innovators together in the face of adversity, and to create mutually beneficial partnerships that enriched our curriculum. Today, we want to acknowledge and celebrate this. Thank you. I'm now going to hand over to my colleague, Aisling Flynn, who is going to moderate the panel discussion, where we will have the opportunity to learn from the stakeholders of 3 projects that have kindly volunteered to share their experiences with us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alison, and thank you so much for everyone for joining us and spending your time here this Friday afternoon. As Alison mentioned, we're going to spotlight 3 of our projects that kindly volunteered to share their insights with us today. These include the School of Business and NCBI, the Geography Department and Pavee, and the Computer Science Department and SAFE Amigos. I should say at this stage that the Experiential Learning team do intend to profile all the projects involved in Project Live this year. So that will be something to look forward to in the near future. So just to give you an idea of the format for the rest of the event and what to expect. So we'll have firstly a representative from each project give an overview and a brief synopsis to set the scene. They'll also then introduce their panelists. And just so we keep to time, it's going to be about 2 minutes per project. I have my good old Paw Patrol clock resources at home, just to keep people on track and to let them know to wrap up. I'll then kick off the conversation and set the scene with some introductory questions to draw out some high-level themes from each of our different stakeholders that are represented here today. But we'd really, really encourage you to come in with your questions, whether that be in the chat or indeed if you want to raise your hand and come on the mic. We'd love to have you engage in the discussion. Also, my colleagues, Maura Buckley and Jennifer Lloyd-Hughes, are available also to help me because we have quite a large panel discussion today with 11 panelists. So thank you to them. So without further ado, let's get started. So if I could hand over to the School of Business and NCBI, their representative, just to give that quick synopsis of their project.
Thanks a million, Aisling. So yeah, just to tell you a little bit about the project. It's a second year, it's focused in on a second year module, which is in entrepreneurship, theory, processes and practice. So the idea is that students learn a bit about the theory of entrepreneurship, but I suppose where the partnership with NCBI, with the National Sight Loss Charity comes in is that, you know, we want to get them activated and practicing some of the theory that they're learning. So we have had this relationship in place for 2 years now, but this year it's just stepped up a level with the Project Live funding, which has been fantastic. So here with me, we have a whole team of people involved. So there's a teaching team, which is myself and the tutor, Sean Raftery, and Shubham Kachar, who's supported the project. But also we have Beverly Scallon, who's the head of retail from NCBI, representing a whole team of people from NCBI, including area managers and store managers, and Pauline Byrne, who's the volunteer manager. And then we have 3 students as well from the module. We have Clodagh and Faye and Saoirse, again representing 330 students who take part in this module. I'm scared of the Paw Patrol clock, so I won't say too much more at this point, and I'd be really happy to get involved in questions that follow.
That's great. Thanks a million, Nicola, for giving that quick overview, and thank you to the team as well for participating in the discussion today. Okay, so we're going to now move to the Computer Science Department and their representative with their project with SAFE Amigos.
Hello everyone, I'm Tapong and I'm from Computer Science. So in this semester, I collaborate with SAFE Amigos working on text messaging management systems, and our battle working on HR report systems. And so I'm delighted to be a part of this project. And the intention of the project is trying to bridge the gap between theories and the practice, because we are teaching computer science, software engineering, and they are highly practical and application oriented. And one of the difficulty part for us really is to bridge this gap between the theory and the practice. So I'm treating this project as a kind of a media and to let students to practice their skills and apply their epistemic knowledges, and also makes their transferable skills, and so prepare students to be a kind of future ready for their future roles. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Peng. Everybody's nice and quick, so thank you for that. There's no Paw Patrol showing up. And last but not least, I'm going to move to the Geography Department and Pavee, their representative, to speak on the project.
Brilliant, thanks Alison. I'll just introduce myself, and of course we have Andy here with us from Pavee as well. So Andy can speak, I think, better to the project itself, but from an academic partner, from the academic side, we were working with Pavee on some work that they had done already initially a year ago when we started. So our partnership was how to help them digitize the work that they had already done. And then this year we tried to focus on creating a toolkit so that this model could be adapted by other community groups. And this is part of a module, a master's module in public engagement. So it's trying to get students to think about how to work with outside partners and community groups. And I think the main thing that I wanted to kind of call attention to was that the fact that the students really enjoy seeing the real life impact. That's something that's really meaningful for them, and seeing that actually what they were doing had real value to Pavee Point, and they got to meet Andy and others from Pavee Point. That made it really valuable for them. So Andy's joining us today, and so thanks so much for joining us, Andy. Thanks, Alison.
Thanks, Rachel. Yeah, thank you very much for that. And look forward to speaking to Andy and indeed Finbar as well from Safe Amigos later. So thank you so much again to our academics, of course, but also the external stakeholders that have joined us during this panel discussion, kind of the partners in this project that are fundamental, and of course our students as well that give up their time to join and give their feedback on the project. Okay, so we're going to kickstart with just a few introductory questions. So I'll maybe start with you, Nicola, if you don't mind. If you could tell us a little bit of your initial discussions with your stakeholder and how you navigated kind of identifying the deliverables that met their needs, which is important, of course, for community engaged learning and work-related learning, but also met your needs in terms of the learning outcomes of the module.
Yeah, I think that was a process, you know, Ash. And so the project first came to me, this module was a new module last year. So our head of school, Professor Peter McNamara, the school had a relationship with NCBI beforehand, and they're on our advisory board. And he wanted to kind of introduce this living lab idea, you know, that we would be working with industry on practice-based projects. But at the same time, Pauline Byrne, who's the volunteer manager in NCBI, had come up with this idea of, you know, The Apprentice that's on TV. So she had this idea that, look, wouldn't it be fantastic if we could use our NCBI shops and our charity shop network to have this kind of apprentice-based challenge for third level students, where we could bring them in, we could take over the store, see what they can do with it. So she had come with this idea, and the two things kind of came together with me and were sort of given to me. That, like, what could you do with these, Nicola? And so I spent a lot of time then with the NCBI team. I spent, I'm quite familiar with the head office now, and many times called in on my way to the airport for meetings and so on. And we spent quite a bit of time going around that question you're asking, like, how do we make what NCBI wanted, which was, I think, and Beverly can jump in here, but from what my discussions with them, they wanted kind of two things. So they wanted fresh ideas for the shops and how the shops might gain more traction, more business, more profit. But at the same time, they also wanted to raise awareness of the NCBI within this kind of younger population. So they had kind of a twofold goal. And so that was what they wanted. But then, and I also needed something entrepreneurial going on. So in the end, with all the kind of back and forth, we agreed that the students would break into teams. Each team would get a shop, an NCBI shop that would be theirs, and that they would develop some kind of a new innovation and write a business plan for that shop. And that would hopefully accomplish both goals.
Yeah, no, it sounds great. And I'll maybe just go to Beverly on that in terms of the external stakeholder representative from NCBI. What was it like working in partnership with Nicola and the student team from a particular idea, obviously, that came from your organisation? Were there maybe any unforeseen surprises or challenges that came about?
Well, I think this was my first year actually working with the university, and the year previously, I think we had some huge learns from that. I mean, we had over 300 students, which is obviously a huge amount of students. And unfortunately, because of lockdown, we were unable to actually take the students into our stores, which it was one of the parts of the plan for them actually to get into a store, understand what the challenges are. And I suppose that was probably one of the main challenges, not being able to get the students out into the stores. I mean, we got some unbelievable ideas from the students, really around sustainability, around taking our business online. And I read every single one of those business plans that came through at draft stage. And I suppose that was one of the challenges, because, you know, you've got over 300 students pulling something together, and the time that's needed to actually sit down and give it the time that it deserves. But some of the ideas were just fantastic and are fantastic. And our intention is to look at how can we actually bring them to life within our stores. And I think to Nicola's point, one of the things that we really wanted to look at was how do we engage with a younger demographic and get them to shop bricks and mortar, really get them to shop pre-loved. And this has absolutely worked in terms of understanding the needs of the younger generation when it comes to sustainability. And hopefully, you know, we'll be able to implement some of those ideas.
Fantastic, Beverly. Yeah, amazing to get some of those innovations coming through from the students, and really nice for the students to see maybe some of those being implemented down the track. So you mentioned the students, and I know that we have a few students here representing this project, and I'd love to go to them at this stage. I'm not going to pick anybody in particular, but anybody that wants to jump in that was involved in the NCBI project. What do you think you learned, or maybe did you learn something different in terms of theory and practice as a result of your participation in this project?
I think I'll start off here, but we definitely did learn a lot by doing the project, and I think most of what we learned wasn't just the theory of entrepreneurship, but it was actually how to use it and how to use it in like a real life setting, because it was very easy to say, oh yeah, sure, they could just, you know, do all of this or do all of that, but then actually talking to the managers and actually getting real feedback from the ideas, like something as simple as not having parking spaces, we never realized how big of a difference that could make to a shop. Or even if we had an idea, oh, like this would be, you know, an idea of making social media accounts, but we wouldn't see it from the perspective of a manager who's never used social media, and the fact that we would have to train them or we'd have to teach them how to use it. And it was just really good learning the skills from it, kind of like how to talk to the managers and like debate about ideas, and then debate with our group about ideas. Like it was mostly it was definitely learning about the reality of business and like idea innovation, idea generation, and like the skills around it. I say that was like the biggest part of like what we learned from the project. Yeah, if any of the other girls want to talk about anything else now.
Thanks, Faye. No, thank you for that insight. In terms of, yeah, that real life where things can change quite dramatically and you have to change up your strategies in response to that. Yeah, would any of the other students like to come in?
Yeah, obviously we had to write up a business plan, and that was kind of the whole first 9 weeks of the lecture. And it was a great way to kind of learn how to write a business plan. The fact that we had to apply it to like a real life organization rather than making up our own one. And it was great to work with the manager as well to kind of get that bit of feedback, as Faye said. And we had a lot of ideas at the start. We came up with, I think, probably at least 10 ideas, plenty. And we learned that loads of them weren't feasible. So we kind of learned that real life kind of perspective as well, that you wouldn't really grasp from just the lectures alone. So I think that was a really big part of it.
Thanks, Clodagh. Yeah, no, fantastic. I'm going to go to you, Depeng, if you don't mind. We're going to have a look at your project with Safe Amigos. Could you give us an overview of how you embedded that project into the curriculum?
Right, okay. So in the software engineering modules, we teach software process models, software design, development, management, etc. The entire life cycle of software development. So one important part of the module, which we already have, is the project development. So the project was seamlessly kind of embedded in the structure of the module, but what the mechanics can be a little bit complex. But what I want to emphasize is the rationales behind bringing this kind of a real world software development activities to the classroom for the module and also for the curriculums. So the software engineering module is really highly practical, as I mentioned, and also application-oriented subject. So one of the biggest challenges for us really is how to bridge the gap between theory and practice, which dominates the approach to preparing our students for their future roles. And previously, we had projects that were made up and greatly simplified. But considering the rapid development of the technologies in the ICT sectors and the dynamic job markets, so we see that employers are looking for a student having up-to-date knowledge and ability to use new technologies and the transferable skills. So students, our future IT professionals, really need to know and to experience the complexity and the challenge exist in real-world application development. So I think bringing a real-world project development to the classrooms could be a more effective way for students to think, rethink, and to frame and reframe their epistemic knowledge, and more importantly, apply their knowledge to practice. That is, transform their kind of epistemic knowledge to craft knowledge. So additionally, that is the development of the project in teams serves as a kind of a virtual integration that integrates knowledge, technical skills, transferable skills like communication, teamwork, management, and creative problem solving. Right. So at the same time, it makes our course more kind of visible to the community, which aligns well with the strategic plans of the department and the part of the objectives of the curriculum. So that's how I approach to the embedding the projects into the curriculum and the modules. Thank you very much.
Thanks to Peng. No, great that it kind of aligns closely with the strategic in terms of the department as well. So fantastic. I'm going to go to Finbar from Safe Amigos, just to get a sense of what the project did. Maybe was there benefits to your organization that the project brought? And the second part of that question is, if you were to kind of do it all again, would there be anything that you would do differently?
Okay. I suppose I've been involved in projects with Maynooth for the past 3 years, and this was my first time working with computer science. Yeah. I suppose there are two aspects to it for me. One is I'm always amazed at the level of work that comes out from the student body and the ideas that they come up with and the innovations that they create. And that has benefited Safe Amigos hugely. Every time I've worked with students, there's so much that I've taken away from it because they're all full of ideas. You go, and as I say to them, there's no such thing as a crazy idea. So they'll go from the very things that might not be practical to some things that are really, really practical and have a direct benefit. For me, it was checking out a particular technology to see if it can be incorporated into Safe Amigos, and it's clear that it can be. It also showed that the students working the project were able to work with these technologies. And the second thing, I suppose, for me is giving something back. That's why I'm a company getting started. Engaging with the students is a great way for me to maybe pass on some knowledge. And they presented to me last Saturday. The standard of the presentations were really high. The work that had been done was excellent. And what was really pleasing to see was that the technologies that we're using are the actual ones that we use within the company, within the software development. So everything, all the tools and techniques that they were using to build their prototypes for the demonstration Saturday are exactly the tools and technologies that we use in real world. And that was fantastic to see that the skills are transferable. So the students coming out will be well equipped to be able to handle the world of work. And importantly, as part of that, it wasn't just the technologies, it was the fact that they had to work in groups. So they actually simulated life in a real world company because they appointed a project manager, they had individuals working on the project. The big challenge for them must have been the COVID and being dispersed all over the place. There was no face-to-face meeting. So I'm very impressed with the level of work they were able to do considering the challenges that we're facing. But they effectively simulated a real world software company, including the challenges of coming across technologies they've never used before and having to rapidly gain knowledge of them and use them within the time frame of the project. And I've forgotten what your second question was.
Yeah, no problem, Finbar. No, thank you for that. No, the second part was, I suppose I'm conscious you've been involved in a few different projects with Maynooth like this, and I'm sure you've learned as each one progressed. So was there anything that you do differently if you're involved in another project similar to this one?
Based on having done it a few times before, it's more a matter of communicating to students exactly what it is that you're looking for, being available to answer the questions. So I don't really think there's much I would have changed in the approach. And maybe depending on the students might have a different concept, but from my perspective as an employing partner, as an external partner, having that initial briefing session, responding to questions as they arise, doing briefing sessions to give as much knowledge to the students as I can, and then the feedback at the end. So I can't really think of anything I would have done differently in the project.
Well, thanks for that, Finbar.
To offer something different on that.
you've perfected it at this stage. And you have that initial briefing session and assessment as well, and the feedback is so important. And on that, we're going to go, I think, Davidas, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, is student representative here today for the Safe Amigos and Computer Science project. And I just wanted to ask you in terms of that assessment piece, Depeng and Finbar touched on it last Saturday. You did presentations, which was fantastic. So what's the assessment like in a module like this? And are there particular benefits to these types of modules in comparison to maybe other modules that you're doing that wouldn't have like a live project associated with it?
Yeah, sure. So I really liked the experience I got from the assessment. Like it was split up in 3 different ways. So it was the project, then the documentation and design documents, and then the actual presentation. So that all came together to give us the full marks for the project itself. But I found the experience very good, as we had one deadline and one deadline only. So basically we didn't have to like submit any documents every week, every 2 weeks. It was just this one deadline that we had to do. So this allowed the whole team to basically set our own milestones. We could work at our own pace. Nobody on the team was put under like any pressure whatsoever, because we just get the work done at the rate that we wanted to get it done. So I thought it was very nice, and like there wasn't too much pressure with like colliding assignments or anything like that. We just got it done at whatever pace we wanted to get done. Yeah, so there's definitely benefit, and doing this, being able to work at our own pace, it allowed us to like enhance our planning skills and our time management skills as well, which I think is a very important aspect to have a good skill on for future careers. As again, we have to plan our time, we have to plan when to do stuff, what to do when, and how long we should spend on each single sprint that we're doing. So yeah, I definitely think there's benefits to these assessments.
Perfect, thank you, Davidas. It sounds like it was a very fluid process. You're absolutely taking on that agile business in computer science. So thanks for that and feeding in. I'm going to go back to Rachel McArdle with her project and the Pavee Point project. I just wondered, Rachel, is there any specific advice you would give to an academic that's maybe just about to approach a project live, having been through that process yourself now with Pavee Point this year?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and something I was thinking about before today. I think the main thing will be expectations, and how to manage both your own expectations but also your students' expectations, because this is quite new for them, and it can be really beneficial, but they can find it hard. You know, it's not the, like Davidas was saying there, it's not the structure of I get essays, you know, it's not the typical academic structure, so they're going to have to work with timelines and different and be more fluid, which is going to be really beneficial to them but difficult. So I think as an academic to get comfortable with the kind of flexibility of working, doing a different type of project, and then also to kind of to work on getting your students comfortable as well, and to constantly do that throughout the module, because they can you know, they start comparing this module to other modules maybe that are more straightforward, and I think it can just be really good to keep reminding them that this is a different kind of project, and that's where the benefit lies, in the interesting part of it.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. And you mentioned you were working with kind of master's students. So did you see that maybe this was a different kind of type of project because it was master's students? Was it more in depth?
Yeah, definitely. And we did have undergrads sit in as well. So there was kind of,
fantastic.
Yeah, it was a good group as well. So the undergraduates had a different experience than the master's students, but I was primarily teaching the master's students. But yeah, they definitely, they take it on board in a different way. And I also think it relates very much to then their thesis work, because they can see, well, okay, I'm working with Pavee Point and this is a certain way we're doing it. Could I do that in terms of my own thesis or my own work, my own project? So I think they can take it on board in a really nice way.
Thanks, Rachel, for that. And we have Andy here, which is fantastic, representing Pavee Point. So Andy, what was your experience like with the project and working with kind of the combination of master students and some undergrads as well?
I think if you were to look at, I suppose the best thing about, or one of the strengths of working with Maynooth was the ability to work, to focus on the process and to work in like a partnership approach. So for us, it's in keeping with the values and principles of the project itself. So the project would have really been about, you know, culture, identity, and you know, originally about a group of traveling men who would have felt, I suppose, that they would have had to, a lot of travellers would feel they have to hide who they are to get on in society. So they went and done a research project about their own history and their own culture. And through that process, I suppose they discovered that, you know, there's been many policies that have excluded them from decisions in power, which in turn has created oppression and inequalities. And in many ways, the role of travellers or the position of travellers in Irish society has changed, but without their input. So they redocumented that. And in some sense, they tried to reclaim some of their own history, but also then our shared history, you know. And I think they developed an understanding of their role as experts, which helped instill confidence in their identity in themselves. And so when we partnered up with Maynooth, it was important that those values and principles continued, you know, because we have to have a vision to where we're going, but not predetermined outcomes, because we want to ensure that the men and the women that were involved in the project, the travellers, had an opportunity to, as they upskilled, as they learned more, as they gained more understanding, that their expertise as travellers was allowed to shape the project and build the project. But at the same time, recognising there's skills we don't have, and there's valued people that we can engage with that can add to that process. So when we went to Maynooth, that was all consistent with how we operated, and it really pretty much worked like that from the beginning. Because I think we were all just very open with each other. We were all very honest. And to be honest, from the students, we went out and we delivered a couple of sessions to the students, just broadly about the history of travellers, the history of the organisation, and from the staff to the students, there was a real and genuine interest. And again, I think that empowered the men more to, instead of hiding who they are and having to maybe, you know, not be proud of their history and their culture, the process and the progress of them being able to build on that and speak about that and see that there was a real genuine interest, because that's what the project really discovered, that, you know, this is about rewriting our shared history just to ensure travellers had a role in that. But by doing that, it enriches us all. You know, so there was a sense from our end that process continued in our relationship with Maynooth. So, I mean, obviously, it's been a fantastic experience for us, and because of that, we've now looked and we have planned, and we are working with Maynooth on a couple of new projects, because I'll say this: it's not always you get that. Like, well, it seems very organic with Maynooth, as it has been for us. It's not always the case, and sometimes there's some conflict and some difference, and we always have to be sure, you know, because we know travellers have been excluded from power, or, you know, for many years, that we don't want to reinforce that power imbalance when we engage with partners who may think they are the experts. They may bring expertise, but they have to recognise the expert role that the marginalised group can play, and that's what happened with this project. So I think it was successful from our point of view, and the feeling I got was that it was the same from the students and the staff in Maynooth.
Thanks, Andy, for sharing that. Yeah, that's a really important point, and it sounds like there was a huge co-creation within that project between the students, the stakeholder group, and the academics. So well done on that. I'm conscious I've asked a lot of questions at this stage for the last half hour, so I do want to open it up to the floor. I know there's other people here that may have questions, so feel free to pop those in the chat, or indeed if you'd like to raise your hand. And we'd love you to come on and raise a question. It might be a targeted question to one of the speakers, so feel free to do that. I suppose Andy touched on the point that was maybe one of the challenges. Was there any other challenges that people felt in terms of the external stakeholders with something like this? I'll kind of leave it open. Some maybe stuff that we could improve on in Maynooth. We'd love to hear that and work on that for the next round.
I might just add to that what I said, because it's just worth exploring a little bit now that you've asked. Sometimes it can be difficult, you know, for partners or from funders, because we have guidelines and we have requirements. So there seems sometimes, and this didn't happen in our case, but it's worth learning from what was successful in our project, was that, you know, having a real discussion about what the project is about and what it can achieve and where it's going can instill more confidence without having a predetermined outcomes. You're still going in a certain direction, but because I think sometimes if people don't know exactly what's going to be produced at the end, they get nervous. But if you can build up a real confidence about the components and the process and again, the direction we're going in, I think that doing that at the beginning allows people to even in times when they might be a little bit unsure about exactly the final outcome, that the confidence of the discussion at the beginning reinforces the belief that we're going in a certain direction. And again, that relationship that's built at the beginning allows people to continue to engage and ask questions and sit down constantly as much as possible to really discuss what's going on. And that's a real value, because sometimes I think people are nervous about asking questions, or nervous because sometimes when working with us, people might be, what can happen is, because we'll always want to make sure travelers are leading out on the project, but we also, as I said earlier, need to recognize that the skills we don't have, and that we're looking for people to give us ideas and work with us. Sometimes it's difficult for people they don't know whether to step back or to step forward, because they might be unsure about how they would be perceived in that role. So for us, it's always very important that we explain all that at the beginning and we build that relationship at the start, which again was done very well with Maynooth at the beginning because they were so open to it.
Oh, thank you, Andy. That's a great point. And I've just seen a few questions come in. From Emma's wondering about the time scale from project from start to finish. So that's a great one, actually. If any of the academics want to come in on that in terms of, what is the duration of the process really, and those discussions, and what sort of lead time you should allow for that?
I can hop in there. Yeah.
Thanks, Rachel.
We started working with Pavee Point in 2019-2020 academic year, and this is a module that I started teaching, but it's been done before. So the geography department worked with the Irish Housing Network before. So what they try and do, and I only started, so I started when we started working with Pavee Point, but what we try and do is work with the partner for a couple of years, because I think that means then that, like Andy said, we can work on process and we can focus on what works, what doesn't work, and we're building a collaboration, and the students may change, but it's building on that project. So I think for us, this is year 2, we've just finished, but in terms of like how it works, I taught this module was in semester 2, so we probably started talking about it from like last September really, but as in the project fits into the semester where possible, but realistically it kind of drags on either side. I think like Andy and I and everyone else in Pavee Point, we haven't met to kind of finalize everything yet, and then we'll continue to work on it through the summer for next year. So I think there's no strict timeline, but generally the semester academic time frame works.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks for that, Rachel. And would that be the same kind of for you, Rachel, or for Depeng and for Nicola?
Yeah, that would have been very much, so we're on pretty much almost exactly the same time scale as you, Rachel and Andy. So we're in our second year, and we would have probably started having discussions around September, October of the previous year. So at the beginning of semester 1 for a semester 2 module, yeah. And the discussions are always ongoing, aren't they, Beverly? I have Pauline's private number on speed dial, so we're constantly in contact. Yeah, and you'd asked us sort of beforehand, Ashton, to think about things we would, advice we would give, and that was one of the things that I had kind of noted was to start the discussions early and give yourselves plenty of time to forge those kind of relationships that Andy's talking about, where you can kind of build the trust before you throw the students in at the deep end. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's an important point to give at the time at the get-go, but obviously, yeah, it's going by a semester. Just a comment to say it'd be lovely to document some of these projects. Absolutely, we agree wholeheartedly, and that's something we definitely want to look at doing. Summertime, I think we piece that, and obviously when we can kind of get back to face-to-face as well, we'd love to do that and dedicate some resource to that, because there's some fantastic initiatives both spotlighted here today and also some of the broader projects as well that we haven't had an opportunity to hear about that we'd love to document too. Is there anybody else that wants to come in on the mic with a question? Everybody's very quiet today. So somebody's come in as a semester 9 weeks, so no, 12 weeks. So typically a semester in Maynooth is 12 weeks. Aidan, I think you maybe raised your hand there, did you?
Yeah. we are participants on a Project Live initiative at the moment. We're from the Rights Platform, which is a community network in South Dublin. And I suppose really it's a question, but it's also a bit of a trigger maybe for a bit of discussion, because I suppose what we're looking for is that Project Live will trigger a longer term relationship with the Department of Sociology, which we're working with. Specifically, we're working around the data which the department might gather and analyse, and which could enhance the advocacy work that we do. I think it's also useful for students because it begins to ground them in real life experiences, particularly in relation to policy and how policy impacts. So that would require a longer term relationship, which we hope to do. But I just wonder, is that an ambition of Project Live?
Thanks, Aidan. Yeah, a great question. And absolutely, I think we see the Project Live to some extent maybe a gateway of a first touch with the university, so that you can kind of engage in a small way and start building those relationships, ultimately to become beneficial, sustainable relationships for the future, where then you can move on to maybe engage in research projects, etc. So we can kind of see that really it's maybe the door initially. And I know some of the projects here have had the benefit of having a couple of years with their partner, which is fantastic. So yeah, absolutely. We see this maybe as just an entry point, and then you're moving forward and building further relationships with academic staff and looking at engaged research as well as an opportunity.
I'd like to come in that if I could, Aisling, because I have been working with people for 3 years. Depending on the computer science, it's the first year that I've engaged with the computer science team. What I've found over the years is that coming up with different projects each year. So unlike Aidan in terms of building a data set and working on it, I've been very conscious of giving the students something different every year, so they can't just pick up something the last year and just copy and paste from last year. So I think it's important as things evolve to try and come up with new ideas, and it does align with the business as it's grown as well. So initially it was pie in the sky research type thing, as in what should I do in these particular directions. As the business has evolved, the projects have then become narrowed down to even more specifics to benefit both the students, but it does benefit the company as well. So I think the long-term relationship is really important. And I do see it will lead to specific research, funded research projects out of work that is done through the collaborations at this level with Maynooth Live.
Yeah, no, thank you, Finbar. An important point. And actually, I just even last night was assessing virtual interviews, and a student had talked about a Safe Amigos project with marketing. So it goes round in circles. So I might ask some of the students, to talk to the benefits that these projects can bring for you. If anyone wants to come in on that.
Actually, I can come in on that for the Safe Amigos project, for benefits. So
David, you are muted.
Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. So what I was saying was, basically not too long ago, I had an interview with Amazon, and they were heavily inquiring about like team projects that I worked on, and just asking specific questions on what was involved, what we did. And thanks to Safe Amigos, so thanks to being a partner in this project, I was able to confidently answer these questions. And yeah, every question that they asked me about the project, I was just able to nail down and answer like with good confidence. And so because of this, they seemed happy, and it led to them actually sending me an offer for a summer internship at the place. So I think thanks to this Safe Amigos project, I don't think I would have gotten that offer from them. So I think there are definite massive benefits like that to be gained.
Oh, thank you for sharing that, David. It's like, that's very powerful to hear that. And it's something I do hear time and time again from students, and engage in real life projects that employers are particularly interested. and it gives them an excellent thing to showcase in interviews. So lovely to hear that from you. I see we have a question from Simon. Thank you, Simon. So were there any surprises that cropped up as your project rolled out, and how were they managed? So I'll leave that open to the floor if anybody wants to come in on that. Any particular surprises and how you manage those?
We'll come in if no one else wants.
Perfect. Thanks, Andy.
So what, because there was like we said, so just to get a small bit of context, so the project we developed, we wanted to digitalize it. So that was one of the things we came up with Maynooth. So again, we hadn't, going back to the thing I said about having some ideas or having some fresh stuff from other people, because we had no idea about how to make a story map or even what it would look like. And we're always interested in taking an opportunity to upskill. So we kind of had a couple of the men who we said would, so Maynooth said they'd sit down and that we tried to design a workshop to try and teach us and the men to do the story mapping. Now we realized a couple of sessions in that it was going to be extreme. It was an awful lot in trying to learn the story map now. So we were able to sit down and just sit back and have a chat. And what we done was just about really, we changed it to making sure that us and the staff from Pavee Point that were involved and the men were really able to, I suppose, just be aware of how the story map operated. But that allowed the men then to get a sense of what a story map would look like. And then they were in a position to have more of an input into what would go on it and where things would be situated. So just that was a challenge for us at the time because we were unsure. We were in uncharted territory. But again, going back to Maynooth were just brilliant because they were able to slow things down. They were able to adapt. They were able to evolve. That's going back to what I'm saying. It's not that we're not all, we'll still have a very strong outcome, but at times for us, it's important that we have a partner that's able to listen to us when we may be struggling, or maybe it's going in a direction that we're uncomfortable, but it's a bit too fast. So, and again, just the relationship with Maynooth meant we were always able to have that discussions. And I'll be honest, at the start we were a little bit nervous. We were saying, well, we'll have to ask them to design this so that we could learn it. We were kind of going, this is going to be hard. Like, they were finding this difficult, but they were brilliant. So it was a challenge for us, and it was a surprise. But again, we were able to overcome it, and there wasn't really any problem at all. And again, I think it ended up enhancing the story map in regards to the input the men have, and also what was produced then in the end.
Yeah, no, it all came out. A question actually came from Joe in terms of, it might be to your point, Andy, about access to digital technology. Was that a particular issue for the Pavee Point project, or indeed any of the projects?
Yeah, well, I suppose to go back to how the project itself really was, one of the cornerstones of it focused on one of the oral tradition, and the tradition of oral tradition in traveller, so storytelling. So a lot of the information the men gathered hadn't been documented, hadn't been written down. So it was really about the men documenting stories from older travellers' minds. And we went down to places, and we went down to previous stopping places, and we got a wealth of information about the way of life and how things were operating. So the project, when we got to, so the men were really comfortable and okay with, they documented and recorded all the information. But in regards to access to digital storytelling, I mean, that just would have been a step up. So, I mean, even in regards to computers and software, now again, Maynooth are brilliant because whilst we didn't get to the point where we'd be able to develop a story map, which again, I don't think any group, I think you'd have to probably go to college for about 4 years to learn that. But we were able to, they set us up. So Sasha and Rachel set up accounts for us in starting. So we hadn't got this access to the software. We would have had computers, but we wouldn't have had access to the software, or we wouldn't have known how to use the software. So we definitely acquired the access to that software and the skills to work it.
Perfect, thanks, Andy. Was digital literacy or access an issue for anybody else or any of the other projects? I suppose given the year that was in it.
Beverly might jump in as well, but we had some technical difficulties, didn't we, Beverly? So we had one of the things that worked really, really well last year, because we started the module in person, and so we had just over 30 student teams, and each team then assigned to a shop. So in one lecture last year, we took one of the biggest lecture theatres, and all of the store managers came in, and the teams all split up into their groups, and they met with their store manager, and that was their first kind of meeting of each other, and it was real buzzy, and they got to know each other straight away. This year, obviously, we had to try and replicate that online, and it was an absolute shambles. So we weren't as wise as you guys, and we stuck to Teams. We probably should have done it via Zoom. And a lot of the store managers couldn't access the breakout rooms in Teams, and it was just it was really disappointing. I can see Sean nodding along there as well, and it was really disappointing for everyone involved. I have to say, like, my huge thanks to the students and to the store managers just worked around it. I mean, they were like texting each other their phone numbers, they were setting up parallel Zoom meetings, and they were arranging to meet each other later. It was incredible to see how everybody just stuck with it, and you know, like 45 minutes in, people were still trying to catch each other and meet each other in the ether. So that was really impressive. And then I think, Beverly, you might talk about whether the store managers found the technology difficult in terms of reading things and sending things. And
yeah, so our store managers, I mean, over that period of time, they actually weren't working. So we were really fortunate that they really wanted to get involved in this project. They saw the benefit of it. So they were doing that in their own personal time. As Nicola said, ideally, you want to see people face to face, as they had done last year. So they were working off their work phones. Now, their work phones, believe me, are not the most jazziest of phones. They're very, very basic phones. So it was really challenging. So when they were going into the shops to show the students what the shops looked like, they were actually using their own personal mobiles, where they got a little bit more technology to be able to FaceTime, which was great. Then when the business plans started to come in, some of them were going into spam or into junk. So the store managers hadn't recognised that the plans had actually come in. So, you know, they're kind of chasing their tails a little bit there in terms of being able to read them and give the feedback. So I think, you know, technology was challenging for NCBI and for the students. And if we're fortunate enough, and hopefully we are, to be able to do something similar next year, hopefully we won't be in this situation and we'll be able to engage face to face and actually get the students into our stores. But absolutely was a challenge. But I think because everybody was so committed, both from the students' point of view and the store manager's point of view, they absolutely worked around it one way or another.
Amazing, particularly given the fact that they weren't officially working.
They weren't working.
Dedication into the project. Fantastic, and I'm sure the students hugely appreciated and benefited from that as well, their input. I'm conscious we do have some other Project Live participants with us. So, I mean, if they want to come on and just give a quick overview of their project, or maybe highlight some of the benefits or surprises that they faced, I'm sure the panelists would like to hear that as well. I know a few of them have put stuff in the chat, so it'd be great actually if you could come on and share some of that with us.
Hello there, it's Leisha here from the Frebel department.
Hi, Leisha.
How are you? I just wanted to talk briefly. I know my colleague Moira will speak as well, because we were very excited by our project, the Taoiseach project, and we were able to team up with the Maynooth Green Campus as our external stakeholder. And something really that Andy said there really resonated with us, whereby he mentioned, you know, the importance of constantly checking in, and for future projects to note this, that we were very lucky that we had this constant line of communication open, and we knew where we were going, and when we didn't, you know, we could come back and talk about decisions to be made and what we needed to do. And specifically, particularly this year, we thought it was really helpful, given that the restrictions changed and they changed again and so on and so forth. So a certain level of reflexivity had to be present, and flexibility, and it was an absolute pleasure to work with Maynooth Green Campus and to see that collegiality in operation. I know Moira will comment more on what we actually undertook with the Taoiseach project, but it was a wonderful experience, and I definitely recommend it to others. Thank you.
Thanks, Leisha, for sharing that with us.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hi all, sorry, it's Moira here. There's building work going on. I hope you can hear me, but
yeah,
thanks everyone for all the information about the fascinating projects. I just want to say in our last session, so with the students, we decided to get feedback from them and to see how, you know, they really engaged in the project and what their thoughts about it were. And it was just amazing to get the feedback. Like honestly, the work that they did with Maynooth Green Campus, the schools, Kildare County Council to produce the Tarshuk Tree Trail and to enhance the biodiversity up in the School of Education, up in the rooftop garden, they said it was the most important module that they'd done because of the collaboration that they'd done in their time in Maynooth, which we were astounded by. And I just think that shows the importance of this initiative and how students really benefit from it. And they said that they would actually like this course now, the module and how it adapted due to the Project Live, to be embedded into the curriculum. And it was just a pleasure. It was my favorite, actually, and Leisha's, I know as well. It was my favorite module to teach, even though it was online. Like, I can't wait next year to be able to try and reproduce this, but to actually be face-to-face with the students. Now, we had to think on our feet, so we were getting the students to use their local environment at home, say sowing their seeds, trying to help us enhance the biodiversity, and we had our platforms to talk to the children in the schools. So it worked out very well, but because we have amazing students and the Maynooth Green Campus, so we'll just thank you everybody for just helping us and producing a wonderful project, and I'd love to be involved again.
Thank you, Maura, and I have to say I can't wait to visit that rooftop garden when we're back on campus, so look forward to that. I'm conscious of time, everyone. I know people have tight schedules. I just want to see if there was any final comments before we close the session.
Yeah, I could. It's come through from all of the various projects on the commitment levels of the students, which is absolutely fantastic to see, including Davidas, who is on the computer science, who actually has an exam at 1:30. So thank you very much to him for coming along at this session. And I think that goes to demonstrate the level of commitment that the students actually do put into the projects. It is phenomenal to see the work that they do. I know it's part of their academic course, but a lot of them go way above and beyond what's actually required in their assessment. So I'd have to say a massive congratulations and thank you to all of the students involved.
Absolutely, Finbar, an excellent point. They do go above and beyond for these projects. I think that's clear, and everybody's nodding their heads with this one. Any other final comments?
Oh, maybe I just want to share some points with my colleagues about my experience, and some think maybe they can think when they are doing the project. First, I think we need to important to establish this kind of a mutual understanding. What could be delivered, what could potentially be delivered. I think that's the foundation for the collaboration, and I believe Finbar will agree with me. Second, I think it's important to have a kind of a well-defined scopes for the project. We really need to consider both the complexities and the amount of work the student could possibly do, right? And another point is that the project might be too difficult for some students. So if we simplify the project too much, then it wouldn't be much different from the fabricated projects, which lost the meaning. And in response to that, I think we need to consider providing alternatives to accommodate this diversity and the multi-intelligence in existing classes. And then subsequently, we probably have to balance the assessment criteria across different projects, having a different level of difficulties. And my last point probably is that we need to make a strong commitment to this. And students will constantly asking questions and looking for clarifications. And in my case, the harder part was when students told me, I don't know what to do, and I'm completely lost. So what I understand why they said it, but I think in general, we do need to provide some kind of guidelines to the students. But furthermore, and more specific to the subject, I provide a kind of a reference implementation of the projects to the students. So it's really the reference implementation was kind of skeletons of the software system that contains the bare minimum functionalities. And for some experienced students like David, they just want to see whether they were on the right track or not. But for majority of the students, they don't know where to start. So the reference implementation was kind of provided as a starting point for them. And I found it very effective. But yourself have to kind of invest a lot of time and effort on that and provide this kind of working products to them. So that's some kind of advice that I would like to share with everyone here. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Peng. Some really important points there. And I think some areas and challenges that come up, and hopefully something maybe we could work with the academics involved in developing a resource pack that would help future people that get involved with Project Live moving forward. Perfect. Well, if there's no further comments, thank you so much again for joining the session and sharing those insights. And we look forward to working with you in the future.